I've been a runner for a lifetime and a teacher and coach for over 20 years now, and time again, from beginner to experienced runner, I see the same 7 problems with how we approach endurance training. So I'm going to give you the 7 solutions. Let's just set expectations early. I'm saying don't copy Eliud Kipchoge, because for every one of him there are 1,000 probably others that maybe had similar genetics, maybe had the same work ethic, but you also need to be able to absorb that volume of training, and that, I think, is the key, the icing, the cherry on the top. So what I'm saying is we're not going to copy what Eliud Kipchoge does. We are going to take the best bits from what he does and adapt them so that they work for us mere mortals. And later in this video, I'm going to explain why the 10% rule of adding volume that you're told to follow to keep you safe is fundamentally flawed, and what you should do instead.
And before we get into the video, can we just agree that the shoes I'm wearing today, the Asics Mega Blast, are the best out there right now? I am obsessed, wearing them pretty much for every run. Let me know if you agree in the comments, or if there's some other shoes I should consider buying. One of the biggest problems we see, often with beginner runners, not always, is that people don't follow slow, meaning slow, or easy running being actually easy. It's such an easy mistake to make. Both Ben and I have done it, but if you don't understand it and accept that easy means easy, you're just not going to build that effective aerobic base that you really need for endurance running. I'll tell you more at the top of a big hill. Halfway up and it's a bit flatter. So when we train easy, we're training in zone 2, which is our aerobic base zone. So it's really enabling that zone to get better and to get bigger so we can run for longer. If we don't stick in that zone 2, that easy running zone, we're just not going to get those aerobic base benefits. Ready for a view? This is my favorite viewpoint, so I'm going to stop and make the next point here. But without a good aerobic base, I wouldn't be able to make it up this hill. I wouldn't have been able to keep running. Why is it so hard for people to stick to easy running? Well, there's no quick win. It really is the long, slow game. There's no kind of overnight success, no new fast PR or split to hit. It's really about sticking in, trusting in the process, and repeatedly running slow over time. And then if you do that, you get amazing benefits.
To prove a point, I'm going to spend this entire segment in this deep Asian squat, because when I first started to do this, I couldn't go beyond 15 seconds without having to stand up. But we are a year and a half down the line, and I'm here and very comfortable. Because the next issue I see with people and their endurance training, if you want to do it for the long term, then you have to invest in strength and conditioning. But I think when people hear the word strength and conditioning, they think weights. They think you have to go to the gym and you have to lift heavy weights and you have to get stronger, and that is absolutely not the case. It can be, but conditioning and strength aren't limited to building muscle. They are also about ensuring you're more mobile, working on your mobility, your flexibility. There's so much that you can do at home as well that will benefit you. And I had my breakthrough moment actually when I stopped focusing on my strength for a little while and I started focusing on my mobility. I learned a routine from Vlad Excel, who's got an amazing channel, by the way, go and check it out. And that led to a 9-minute PB in Chicago. And I honestly think it was one of the biggest driving factors of the whole journey, because I managed to stay injury-free throughout the whole training cycle. Since then, I've worked on my strength when it came to training for high rocks for a cycle. But I think the point I'm trying to make is you have to invest in strength and conditioning, but it doesn't have to mean what you think it probably means. It can be as simple as a 10 to 15 minute mobility routine every morning, and that could be the difference between a PB and not making the start line. And look how long I've sat in this, no problems whatsoever. I think a vast number of runners don't do this, and that is periodize their training. That's to say, they put their training into manageable blocks. Our usual pattern is that we do 3 weeks of gradually increasing training, and then we do a deload week where we decrease the volume by around 30 to 50% depending on what we're training for. And the beauty of this structure is that you can train for any distance, or you can train for any part of your fitness using it. Marathon training, we periodize like this. Improving our VO2 max, we still periodize like this.
It simply gives you purpose and direction in a structure you can use for anything and for a lifetime. How many of you out there currently structure your training like this? Because we'd be keen to know. We've just started training for Tokyo whilst we still have Shanghai Marathon in 3 weeks. So we're having to be clever about how we structure the training to push us enough, but also allow us to recover enough. But without this approach, I think we would be bang in trouble. Okay, let's talk 10% rule and why I feel like it's fundamentally flawed, but also I do understand why it's there. If you're coming into running as a new runner and you want to go quickly through the gears, this 10% rule is a way of trying to just encourage you to gradually overload yourself so that it keeps you safe and you can build. And even that works for experienced runners, but here's why I believe it's flawed. Let's say you're a new runner and you're running 4 times a week and you're running maybe 5 kilometers, okay? So that's 20 kilometers over the week. If we added 10% to that, that's 2 more kilometers, which would equal 500 meters on each run. Now, if I added just a kilometer on each run, which I think is still a safe bet, that's 20%. So people would say, whoa, that's not 10%. But in the early days, you can go through the gears a little bit more aggressively, otherwise you'd never get anywhere. Adding 500 meters onto a run is bonkers. And if we go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where we're talking about a runner that's running 100 miles a week, and we're saying add 10% onto that, suddenly you're adding another 10 miles, 16 kilometers onto a week that is already quite far in advance. So where are you finding that 10%? How are you safely adding that across your week? Again, don't think it really stacks up. So again, it comes down to the experience of a person, to the feel of a person. What can they safely add on? And what about the middle ground? Someone like me. Let's say I usually run 65 kilometers in a week. What if I was running them all easy and I changed 2 of the sessions to more lactate threshold sessions? I haven't actually added any volume on 10%, but what I have done is change the session type and the stimulus, and that is enough to see me make quite a lot of progress. So that's why the 10% is fundamentally flawed, because it's just so much more personal than that. In the early days, you can probably add on a bit more. In the later days, you want to add on a little bit less, and in the middle, you can change the actual session style and make just as much progress. And we all experience stimulus and adapt to stimulus in different ways. So a hard and fast 10% isn't going to work. But ultimately, I do get why it's there. It is there in theory to try to keep us safe.
Another solution, if you're like me and perhaps you're a little bit injury prone, is using cross-training as a secret weapon. And it's no secret, I've said it on the channel so many times, but I have never been as fit as when I was training for an Ironman, and I know Ironman sucks up your life, takes everything. However, I ran PBs across pretty much every distance whilst I was doing that in terms of my running, whilst I was running my lowest volume that I've run in the last 6 or 7 years. So while it doesn't have to be cycling, not everyone's cup of tea, and I totally get that. Could be swimming, could be using the elliptical, could be a rowing machine. There's so many different options that just help you build a cardiovascular base, but with much less impact cost than you would get in the running, you know. And whilst it can be a secret weapon, as I say, it is also something that keeps me safe. My body cannot absorb the volume that a lot of other people can, but I know I can overall absorb volume if I move some of my sessions onto the bike, and then usually I'm good for all distances and I'm still as fast as I've ever been. So cross-training 100% needs to be considered if you are looking to really improve your endurance performance. I'll be honest, I didn't think I would be filming this segment on the treadmill. If you have a look outside now, it's evening, and when I wanted to film the segment, it was morning, but it has been almost like typhoon today. But actually, it illustrates the point I want to make really, really well, because I want to talk about double run days. I think a lot of us normal runners look at double runs and we see 2 runs in one day as kind of something that the elites would do, as the top level runners would do. That's not the place for us, we don't need to do that. But my argument is this: a double run day doesn't have to be a way of separating huge volume. It can be just a way of making your life work. So we'll take today as a really good example. We woke up ready to go for a 15-kilometer run, and it was just hammering it down. It was awful. And so with everything that we had to do today, I had to take my dad to the airport to drop him off to fly back to the UK. We said, how about 10k on the treadmill, back to back, 5k in the evening, this is the 5k right now, and we still get the 15 kilometers done. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter how you slice it, a 5 and a 10 or a 15, you're going to get the same benefit. So the argument for a double run is simple. It can help you fit running into your life. 15 kilometers can be split in any way. And the thing is, there are so many benefits to a double run. A double release of human growth hormone keeps you safe if you're tired, because technique breaks down when you do slightly longer runs like 15 kilometers and you're already tired. I can hold my, well, it looks like I can hold my technique together. I can hold my technique together in a 5k and then a 10k. So this is just the way that I look at it, but the body knows volume. Volume is volume. The only time that I would verge away from that is if you've got, say, a 30 kilometer long run and you think that you're going to get the same benefit from 2 15 kilometers. That's not the case. You need a long run, a significant long run. There are different physiological adaptations that happen, but actually for the rest of the week, for the rest of the volume, if you need to split a 10k into 2 5s, that's what the body knows, and that's why I think we shouldn't ignore double run days as a strategy in busy lives that will achieve what we need to achieve anyway, which is just getting volume into the legs. Just wish I could have done this outside in the day. It's so much more beautiful out there, but you know, it is what it is.
A big problem with a lot of runners when it comes to endurance training is that they don't have a broccoli mindset. You see, we live in a world of quick fixes, of instant gratification, 10-second clips, manicured lives, answers at your fingertips. And if we approach running like this, like comparison to others or wanting all the improvements immediately, we're going to be sorely disappointed. You see, running and broccoli are the same. We know they're good for us, but we have to have faith in that fact. We don't get instant gratification or see instant results. It's a long-term faith in the process thing. Eating a donut, you get an immediate sugar high. A nicotine hit from a cigarette or the first mouthful of beer on a hot summer's day. These things aren't good for us long-term, but they do give us immediate feedback. Broccoli can be dressed up in dishes, but let's be honest, it's a bit of a plain Jane. But you know it's good for you, just like you know with running. Running isn't frilly. Most of the time it's uncomfortable, but you know long term this is what we need to be doing for a better life. Not just for weight loss, not the kudos, not the medals or the times, just because. Because running is broccoli, and we love it that way. Come on, this video had to help, and if it did, then you have to consider subscribing. That's only fair, but you're also probably going to like this video very much when I go into detail about the age that most runners should slow down, but also the way to avoid slowing down. And if you need more, if you want more, we have an amazing membership community. The link is in the description. I'll probably see you in there. The right people will find their way there. Laters.